Welcome to the podcast, Mr. Tsao.
Hello, everyone.
Thank you. So I know that you've been so busy because there have been local elections in Taiwan lately. And so I thought maybe we could start by talking about that because I know you've been quite active and busy. What are your thoughts on the outcome of the recent elections?
Well, people are still analyzing what happened. And of course, the Green camp, the Minjinda camp, were very disappointed. So most people believe President Chai is a major one who is responsible for the loss. I think what she did was that she recommended the last Hsinchu mayor, Lin Zhijian, to compete in Taoyuan. But then there was a case. People say that his essay was copied from other articles. So that's what we call 论文门, kind of become a major focal point in the election. And that brought down a lot of Green Camp supporters.
Yeah, unfortunately, there have been different so-called scandals with people's thesis being plagiarized and things like that. Seems like people making issues of those things. What do you think the outcome of the election tells you about the current concerns of the people of Taiwan, and how does that make you feel?
I think election shows that there's some problem with the current administration. Tsai Ing-wen has stepped down from the chairman of the Minjindang. The vice president Lai Ying-de has stepped up to say he's willing to compete to take the chairman position. And then, of course, he will run for the next election. I think that's a good sign because the Lai background is very clean and people has a lot of trust in his integrity. So I think he will bring a new scenario to Taiwan. Honestly, I'm positive on the outcome of the 2024 president election.
Good to know because I know that during this election you're trying to fight a lot of disinformation. There's some disinformation about the candidate Zhang Wanan, the KMT candidate who still got elected as the mayor of Taipei, and a lot of people were kind of disappointed because the KMT they won so many seats in the election and they were concerned that may impact the presidential election. But why do you say you're still optimistic?
Well, basically, this time the supporter of the blue camp has not changed much,
Hmm.
has not increased. But what happened was that the middle group, they decided not to vote for the green camp.
Hmm.
So, of course, in the next election, probably it's very difficult to convince the blue camp to vote for the green camp. But the people in between, I think they can be much easier to be convinced to come out to vote for Lai Ching-te. So I think it looks fine, I think.
Of course, as I'm talking to you, I know that everyone is going to want to hear me ask you about the US $100 million donation that you pledged to defend Taiwan that's been so much covered in the media. I know that a lot of reports said that the money was going to go for civil defense and military drones. Is there anything else in addition to these items that the money's going to be spent on?
I think the major weakness in Taiwan is in the area of recognition, the national identity, or the psychology, or the confidence,
Hmm.
the solidarity. So these are all the mental part. So I try to make this weakness stronger. Yeah, I try to bring people the significance of our current situation. I keep saying that after 1996, Taiwanese can elect their own president. Then they become real citizen,
Hmm.
公民. For thousands of years, Chinese never enjoy the status of a citizen. They actually are either have to obedience to the authorities or they might be beaten up like animals by the
Hmm.
rulers. So it's very significant that Taiwanese now can be free, democratic, and under the law, they're all equal. So I think I try to let people appreciate our status. The free democratic people with a human right protected by law. So I think people have to realize that it's not something that comes easy. It was the achievements of many people's contribution. So we have to appreciate that, and we should try to unite to preserve the democracy and freedom.
So how are you planning to do that? I know that part of what you're working on is disinformation and fake news in Taiwan. And can you talk a little bit about what you're doing to support protecting Taiwan's democracy?
Yeah, well, a lot of fake news actually are supported by the communist parties, by China. So instead of arguing with them, I think we should bring the right concept, the positive information to gain people's confidence in the right direction. As I said, we cannot fight the darkness, but we can send out the light. We can be kind of like a torch. So then we can light up people's mind.
I'm also wondering, how is it that you came to make this decision to donate $100 million? What is the decision-making process that you go through to decide to do something like that? It's not every day that we hear somebody doing that. You decide to come back to Taiwan and to spend all this money to protect Taiwan's democracy. Can you tell me a little bit about how you came to this decision?
Well, I have to bring the time back to 2 decades ago. In year 2000, I was the national policy advisor to Chen Shui-bian. In 2001, he asked Mr. Li Yuan to form a special task force, try to dress up the cross-strait policy or strategy. It consists of a blue camp, green camp, and a colorless people like me.
Uh-huh.
So there I said from now on, we should not talk about so-called one China, because there's no one China, there's two China. One is the Republic of China, the other is the People's Republic of China. If you talk one China, people got lost. The world got confused. Right? Mm-hmm. So from that time, we should say that we don't have the issue of a so-called Taiwan independence. Taiwan, the Republic of China, has been independent. There's no independence issue. But there's an issue that China want to so-called reunite Taiwan. Actually, it's just an invasion. It's just an aggression. The Communist Party, they were the citizen of the Republic of China, but they decided to start an armed rebellion. So they established a regime called People's Republic of China in 1949, right? So that's how Republic of China was separated. But the central government of the Republic of China moved over to Taiwan. We were separated by the Communist Party in 1949, right? As an independent state, Republic of China has always been independent of People's Republic of China. So there's no independence issue. Maybe there's a democracy issue. There's no independent issue. So what I've been promoting was that there's only one issue, which is the request of reunification by China. So we have to deal with this. So how to deal with it is, in principle, is not complicated. In principle, we should learn from the business merger and acquisition. When one company wants to merge another company, they have to come up with a proposal and send a proposal to the other company to be approved by their shareholders. So in 2001, I said that Taiwan should ask China to come up with clear terms and conditions and send the conditions and terms to Taiwan. And Taiwanese hold a referendum on those proposals. If the Taiwanese agree on this proposal, then the reunification process can be started. So that's what I proposed. So there's no independent issue. There's an issue of facing the request of a reunification from China. And I said that reunification has to be through the referendums in Taiwan. But a lot of people misunderstood me. They said, I'm pro-reunification, which actually is not true. Because I keep saying that, look, at the end of World War II, there were only 60 sovereign states. But now the independent sovereign states has come to 195. So from 6 to 195, shows that after World War II, the trend of modernization or civilization is for countries to go independent. We should view independence as an achievement, as luck, as civilized. So in the past, either Kuomintang or the Communist Party, they educate people or brainwash people that Taiwan independence is very, very bad, very evil. But that's wrong. So we have to change the perception of independence. We have to let people understand that Taiwan independence is very lucky, is civilized. So look, United Kingdom used to rule a huge number of countries: Canada, United States, Australia, New Zealand, Egypt, India. Now these countries are all independent of UK. So if any party in the UK says they want to reunite, say Canada or US or Australia, people will say that's crazy, right? If this party says they want to reunite any of the countries by force, he must be a terrorist, right? So Taiwan, after 1949, has been independent of China for the last 73 years. So there's no any reason to bring Taiwan back to under the ruling of communist parties.
I don't think there is even any reason why they need to have a referendum, because it's not like Hong Kong when there's some kind of contract that they have to go back, or they were even part of China. Taiwan was never a part of the Chinese Communist parties. I mean, the history is quite complex, but yeah, I don't even see why there needs to be a referendum. That would just be if people really want to consider this as a scenario. But there's not even any obligation that Taiwan needs to have a referendum on this.
You're right. You're right. But you just have to deal with it.
Hmm.
Deal with it.
Hmm.
Yeah.
To give a clear response.
Yeah. It's just okay. We try to propose some civilized way, a peaceful way to deal with, so we can avoid the war, right?
Hmm.
So I think Taiwan needs to show China that there is a peaceful way to solve this. You cannot ignore the democratic process in Taiwan. If they want to do anything, if they follow the democratic process, it can be okay. So that's what I've been proposing. But in 2019 in Hong Kong, I saw how the Communist Party cracked down the freedom or cracked down the judiciary independence in Hong Kong, and how Hong Kong was protecting was kind of beaten down, especially in July 21st, the Yuanlang station. The Hong Kong police, they mobilized a huge group of ruffians. They come to use stick, some weapons to beat up just common innocent citizens. So
Right.
when I saw that, it's out of line. So I realized that you don't have to talk to them anymore because they just don't respect any rules. They don't honor any of the promises. So why should we deal with them? So I decided I come back to Taiwan. I will wake up Taiwanese, let them know that there's only one way to stop them, just by fighting. You have to protect yourself, just like Ukraine.
Hmm.
When Putin was so crazy, many people try to convince Putin not to attack Ukraine, but there's no way to convince him. The only way is to fight and stop him. I think Taiwan is in the same situation.
Right. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people will be curious about how you shifted your thinking, because it's known that you supported the Xintang, the new party, in 93, and then in the 2000s you were very pro doing investment or building better business ties in China. What's the difference between the situation then and now? Because there's quite a shift in your thinking towards China.
Well, again, that's not a correct story. What happened was that in year 2000, some of UMC, my company employees, they
Hmm.
decided to quit UMC and decided to start their second career in China. So I could not stop them. So I said, okay, you go. We can build up strategic relationship.
Mm.
We try to coordinate each other instead of having direct competition. So that's what happened. So UMC and I did not invest in China. We just kind of help them to get some fund, help them to start up. So the people misunderstood that because they say, "Oh, you invest in China." No, actually, we've been very careful in doing so. But before the ex-employee of UMC did that, there were already two cases. The two companies formed by Taiwanese in Shanghai. So that's what happened. I never
Hmm.
say promote heavy investment to China. Never.
Okay. And what about your support of the new party in 93? Because I read that in 93 you supported the Xintang in 93 when they were formed.
Xindang, yeah, I have many friends. They were a group that emphasized on integrity, emphasized in cleanness. At that time, Xindang believed Li Denghui was corrupted.
But they were also pro unification, right?
Yes, they were pro-independent, but in that term, I'm not in agreement with them.
Hmm.
But it was very short-lived because very
Hmm.
soon people found that the new party was, not decent people.
Hmm.
Actually, when they gain some power, they start to fight against each other. So actually, they did not have the integrity or do not have a very long-term perspective. So very soon, I did not support them anymore.
Yeah, it's difficult when people have ideas, but then in practicality, things may change. It's very interesting that you identify yourself as Taiwanese, and I know that you were born in China and your parents and family came over in the late 40s. I was curious to know when you began to have this identity of being Taiwanese. Like, how did you identify yourself when you were growing up? I imagine it only seems normal that you would consider yourself Chinese, but then maybe there was some kind of a evolution or something. Can you talk about that?
Well, actually, I never thought about that issue. I just grew up and I was an
Yeah.
engineer. I do my job. Actually, I helped create the chip industry in Taiwan. So I have a lot of affection of Taiwan. This is where I grew up. This is where
Hmm.
I made it myself. Yeah.
Hmm.
So yeah, I'm Taiwanese. When people ask, where are you from? I now tell them I'm from East Africa.
And now for a short break. Hello, listeners. I'm excited to share that we have a donor who has offered Talking Taiwan a matching donation of $5,000. That means when we raise $5,000, it will be automatically doubled to $10,000. So this is the time for you to make a contribution to Talking Taiwan and help us raise $10,000. You can make a contribution to Talking Taiwan on GoFundMe.com, Patreon.com/Talking Taiwan, or PayPal and Zelle using our email address talkingtaiwanpodcast@gmail.com. Or if you're old school, just send us a check to our mailing address, which you'll find on our website at talkingtaiwan.com/support. All of our donors will get exclusive first listening access to my interviews with Robert Tsao, founder of UMC, who in August of 2022 pledged to donate $100 million to help Taiwan defend itself. Kevin Lin, one of the co-founders of Twitch and current co-founder and CEO of MetaTheory. The Boba Guys co-founders Andrew Chow and Bin Chen. Qinqi Yang, a multidisciplinary artist who has been inducted into the New York Foundation for the Arts Hall of Fame. And Michelle Kuo, an attorney, activist, and author of Reading with Patrick, which is a runner-up for the Dayton Literary Peace Prize and the Goddard Riverside Stephen Russo Book Prize for Social Justice. We'd like to thank our first donor of the year, the Greater New York Region Overseas Taiwanese Pen Club, and all of our supporters. Now, back to the episode.
Yeah, Israeli historian. Actually, you raised a question. He said that now people, technology-wise or ability-wise, people become God. But mentally, they're still like a baby. So it makes a world very dangerous because so much power, like you can destroy others or even the whole responsibility is. So the answer is that with the advance in technology, we have to grow ourselves from inside. I would say that we have to become a Buddha, the Buddhist term of the ideal man. So I'm a Buddhist. Buddha means that you first become people with a 智人勇. Do you understand me?
I'm not sure.
Let's say 智人勇 means you have to be wise, you have to be kind, you have to be brave. When you are equipped with this substance, you can start pursue 真善美, 真 is truth, virtue, and beauty. So that you acquire the internal strength in terms of 智人勇. Then you start pursue 真善美. The difference become man and the animal is that we keep pursuing 真善美. Yeah. So that differentiates us. So you can see in China, under the authoritarian rulings, people dare not to speak truth. They are discouraged to find the truth in China. So it's very common that people try to hurt others for their own benefit. It's a very cruel, very barbaric society. But in Taiwan now we see we're more free, democratic. We honor human rights. So Taiwanese basically much better people. Better people.
我没办法在部上帮你处理。
I don't know why the voice comes up every now and then.
From a Chinese intervention.
Yeah.
So anyway, Taiwan is a much better place. Taiwan is modern. Taiwan is more civilized. So enjoy status of citizens. So we have to appreciate that. And so-called national identity, that's just a superficial thing.
I see. Interesting.
The essence, the fundamental value is what we should focus on.
So then what do you think about what's happening in China? Because there have been a lot more protests recently about the COVID restrictions and so forth. Do you think that there's any hope? And I don't know, some people who are very cynical think, well, yes, people are tired of the strict COVID restrictions, but that's all that it is because they want to go shopping, they want to go to the restaurant, they want to go out. It's not really about freedom and having the right to elect their leaders or having like full rights.
Well, I think Chinese communists, they've been experts on controlling people or slaving people. Now, with the help of modern technology, I think they actually can monitor every person's every movement. So it's very difficult for Chinese to fight against the system. So, as I said, we cannot overcome darkness. We can only emit light, emit hope. So we have to protect Taiwan so it can serve like a lighthouse. So it keeps us emit light into the darkness of China. And hopefully someday, somehow, they could stand up to overturn that ridiculous, barbaric government.
Thank you. It's very interesting the way that you put it. I can see where you're coming from now because it's not really so much that we can necessarily do anything about China because they have their issues with the Communist Party and things they're struggling with. But we need to protect Taiwan because, like you said, the democracy has been hard won and the human rights and the things that we have in Taiwan need to be protected. How do you see yourself, or how would you like people to see yourself as a philanthropist, as someone who's an expert on Taiwan-China relations, someone who just wants to create awareness, or maybe, I don't know, do you have any ambitions to run for an office? How would you like people to think of you?
Well, I just let people think me as just a normal Buddhist. The Buddhist basically is try to keep people happy, try to remove their suffering. That's what I've tried to do. Yeah. And I found a great pleasure in doing so. So you can view me as a monk with the hairs.
What would you like to see in terms of the Taiwan-China relations? What do you think we should do to strengthen Taiwan's place in the world?
Well, the view independence of China as a very great achievement. It's a heaven's gift. We enjoy the freedom and democracy because basically Taiwanese are kind people. And becoming independent is such achievements. Look at many places, they want to be independent, but they could not. Like Quebec in Canada, Scotland in UK, Western Australia. Many people like to become independent. And look, even UK, they joined European Union. Now they want to exit. It's a very painful and lengthy process. They have not done it completely yet. So becoming independent is such a luck that don't lose it. We have to fight to preserve it. Yeah, we just don't want to lose it.
But there's still a couple of things I think need to be taken care of if Taiwan wants to become a fully functional. Because there are a lot of things that are dysfunctional in Taiwan, like, for example, the official name, in my opinion, the Republic of China, is very confusing. Everybody says it's Taiwan, but that's not the official name. And then also, you could argue there's issues with the Constitution. What do you think about these issues? Like, do you think there needs to be some kind of a name rectification movement or constitutional reform in Taiwan?
Yeah, well, first, I think we have to support the President Tsai Ing-wen's argument that Taiwan and China are two independent states, and they don't belong to each other. So that we have to speak loudly internally and in the international places. We have to let people realize the fact is that Taiwan is an independent state. We do not belong to China. So we have to first clear up the confusion internationally or domestically. So when people realize that's a fact, then the rest is easy. You want to change the name of Republic of China to Taiwan? Why not? And you have to remove the so-called one China policy. That'll be much easier. So you have to let the Taiwanese identify with the independence status. Then let the world understand that we are independent states. That's a fact. We do not want to change the status quo. The status quo is that Taiwan is independent of China. We have to let everyone know that. And we have to let people know that Chinese aggression or invasion on Taiwan is anti-civilization. It's a war crime against humanity. We have to keep saying that. When most people accept that, then the rest is easy.
Right. And of course, because of your background with UMC, I have to ask, how much of a deterrent do you think is Taiwan's semiconductor industry to China attacking Taiwan?
Well, currently, I think if China attacked Taiwan, if they discontinue the production of Taiwanese chip industry, it will be catastrophic for the whole world because all the new product in the area of AI, cloud computing, or autopilot, or defense, or space works were all disastrously impacted. But the importance of a chip industry in Taiwan can be a sword with a double edge because it could be also become a target for Chinese to blackmail the whole world. They could say that, okay, you have to ask Taiwanese to surrender their sovereignty for us to not attack the chip industry. So that could be also a strategically danger to Taiwan.
They would be impacted by that too, because there's so many things that we use in our daily lives that need semiconductors, right?
Yeah, but you have to realize that the Chinese Communist Party's the first priority is their controlling power. Like Mao Zedong used to say that he encourages the Chinese to increase the population because he said that once we have enough population, and in case there's a nuclear war, the U.S. will be eliminated completely, but we still have plenty of people to survive. So Chinese communists, they have a very crazy ideology. You may ask one question, why they have already such a huge land? They still want to attack Taiwan because Taiwan is strategically important to them. What it means is that they want to bring down the U.S. dominance in the world. They want to be the only one dominant power in the world. So after they conquer Taiwan, they can open up the door to expand their dominance in the Pacific. So you have to realize that their priorities is different from us. We care about the civilization, we care about the future mankind, their power. So like Putin, what's the benefit that a Russian can enjoy by merging Ukraine? It's just crazy guy's ideology. But in China, the craziness is not limited to only Xi Jinping. The craziness is shared by about 90 million communists on China. So we have to realize that.
Yeah, something to think about. I also wanted to ask you, since you pledged the 100 million for defense of Taiwan, what do you think about, first of all, what kind of reform needs to happen in the military in Taiwan? Because you're one person, but Taiwan needs to think about what it needs to do.
Right. So I hope Lai Ching-te, the coming candidate for Minjindang, can provide some clear guidance.
Do you have any thoughts? Because I've heard a lot of different things, like increasing the length of military service, maybe allowing women to serve in the military.
I think basically many people want to participate in protecting the country. I think you probably should not too insist on the terms. For instance, how long for young people should be drafted to the armies. Probably it's not that important. But I think it'd be very easy to ask the people to join the army, to get trained voluntarily. Like the Kuma Academy. People want to come to the class to get training. We just don't have enough capacity to handle all those requests.
I see.
Yeah, and many mothers want to get the training because they want to protect the babies.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, so I think you can do it in a very innovative way.
Mhm.
You don't force young people to come to military because it won't
Okay.
be very useful.
Interesting.
Yeah. When I delivered a speech in Taiwan, many elders said they like to come to fight for Taiwan. Okay.
Well, everyone needs to be trained then to know how to do that properly
Exactly.
and effectively. What about, like, some people say if the Taiwanese really want to protect themselves, like have better defense, then they really should just pay more taxes and spend more on the military.
Paying taxes is such a sensitive issue.
Yeah.
People would like to hear that you use money more efficiently
Sure.
instead of paying more money.
Yeah. The last thing I just want to ask you is, because we talked about how in 2007 you made a proposal to have a referendum on unification with China. Would you still stand by that today? Do you think it would be a good idea to have a referendum on whether Taiwan should unify with China?
No, that's another misunderstanding.
Okay.
I never proposed to have a referendum. I just said that if China want to reunify Taiwan, they have to go through Taiwan referendum.
Okay.
Basically, I think a reunification is a funny idea. It's
Mhm.
against humanity.
Mhm.
Yeah. It's against the civilization. But if they really want to do that, we can provide them a peaceful and civilized way. So that's all I was talking about. I never proposed to hold a referendum for them in Taiwan. So I have to really clarify that.
Okay. Thank you for doing so. And I invite you, if there's anything else that you'd just like to say, I invite you to share.
2 days ago, I delivered a speech at the annual meeting of FAPA.
Oh, wonderful.
So I know there are many groups in the United States. They care about Taiwan. They want to do something for Taiwan. But it seems the effort was very separated and somehow not very well coordinated. So I think you guys in the States should be cooperating more and making the effort much bigger.
Okay. Yeah, this is an issue. So that brings up another question. It's kind of interesting because, as we've already talked about this in the interview, there's been some misunderstandings about your position in the past and so on. So I think there are a lot of people who were probably your detractors in the last 10 years, but now that you have this position and you've come back to Taiwan and said that you want to help with the civil defense, a lot of people are now really your strong supporters. So that must be very interesting to see some people who were actually very critical of you now be some of your strongest supporters.
Yeah. Well, in recent months, many people come to say, Mr. Thomas, sorry, I used to attack you wrongly. I say, oh, well. Yeah. It's very difficult to understand others. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I think time will tell.
Yeah.
Who is really having some compassion? Who is trying to keep gather something for themselves? So yeah, trust me, I'm a Buddhist.
Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate your time. It was a very interesting interview. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah,
Uh,
nice talking to
press.
you.